What's the worst marriage proposal story you've ever heard? My ex-boyfriend, Alex, staged my kidnapping as an elaborate, twisted prank so he could propose to me. I said no, obviously, and broke up with him on the spot. So, naturally, he started stalking me to try and win me back, because in his mind, that's what romantic heroes do. Before all this, I thought our relationship was good. Not perfect, nobody's is, but good. Alex was a man of grand gestures. For our 6-month anniversary, he didn't just get me flowers. He filled my entire apartment with them while I was at work. For my birthday, he threw a surprise party that involved flying in my best friend from across the country. He loved the performance of love, the big, cinematic moments that you could post on Instagram. And I'll admit, got caught up in it. It was flattering. It felt like I was living in a movie. The problem with living in a movie, however, is that you often ignore the script's warning signs. The small things. Like how he never really listened when I talked about my day, but he always remembered the name of a fancy restaurant I'd mentioned wanting to try. Or how he hated when I was upset or sad because it ruined the good vibes. So, I learned to keep my anxieties to myself. He wasn't interested in the quiet, messy reality of a relationship. He was interested in the highlight reel. Looking back, I can see that he was always planning a movie, and I was just a character in it. I just never imagined the genre was going to be a horror film. It all started yesterday. I was out for my usual afternoon run, just trying to clear my head after a long day at my graphic design job. I was on a familiar trail, a quiet path that winds through a wooded park near my apartment, a place that had always been my sanctuary. I had my headphones in, music blasting, feeling that runner's high where the world and all its little stresses just kind of fade away into the rhythm of your feet hitting the pavement. That's when I noticed it. A dark, unmarked SUV, driving unusually slowly on the road that runs parallel to the trail. At first, I didn't think much of it. But then it paced me. When I sped up, it sped up. When I slowed down to tie my shoe, feigning normalcy, while my heart started to thrum with a low-level anxiety, it slowed down too. A cold knot of dread started to form in my stomach. This wasn't right. This wasn't a coincidence. I live in a safe city, a safe neighborhood, but every woman knows that feeling. The prickle on the back of your neck that tells you the rules of safety have suddenly changed. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling and slick with sweat as I tried to type a text to my sister. Just a quick message. Hey, weird SUV following me on the trail. Just in case. My thumb hovered over the send button, but before I could press it, the SUV swerved abruptly to the side of the road, its tires crunching on the gravel shoulder. A side door slid open with a violent mechanical groan, and someone jumped out. They were a silhouette against the afternoon sun, dressed head to toe in black, a ski mask obscuring their face. I didn't even have time to scream. A primal, animal fear took over my body. A terror so pure and absolute it bypassed thought. They grabbed me. I tried to fight back, I really did. I kicked, I thrashed, I dug my nails into the thick fabric of their sleeve, trying to claw at their eyes, their face, anything that would give me a moment to escape. But I was no match for their strength. They dragged me toward the van, and as we got closer, 2 more masked figures emerged from the dark interior, like spiders from a web. They each took an arm, their grips like iron, and pulled me into the dark, musty-smelling van. The door slammed shut, plunging us into a disorienting, near-total darkness. The sudden lack of light was suffocating. The 3 of them worked quickly, efficiently, with a practiced coordination that terrified me even more. It felt like they had done this before. They forced my arms behind my back, the rough scrape of what felt like zip ties biting into my wrists as they pulled them tight. They shoved a rough, foul-tasting cloth into my mouth to stop my screaming, gagging me so forcefully I thought I was going to choke. And then they pulled a thick, suffocating bag over my head. My world became a terrifying void of darkness, the smell of stale air and my own fear, and the sound of my own frantic, muffled sobs. I tried kicking again, my legs flailing wildly, aiming for anything I could make contact with, but they were ready for that too. Someone grabbed my ankles and cinched another zip tie around them, immobilizing me completely. I was bound, gagged, and blind. They kept telling me to calm down, their voices muffled and distorted through their masks, which only made me panic more. How do you calm down when you're convinced you're about to be murdered? I was resisting so much, writhing on the cold, vibrating metal floor of the van, that they eventually had to pin me down, one of them pressing a heavy knee into my back, holding me in place like a captured animal. I have no idea how long I was in that car. Time lost all meaning. It felt like an eternity, a lifetime of pure, unadulterated terror. I was crying uncontrollably, the tears soaking the gag in my mouth, making it hard to breathe. I begged them to let me go, my pleas muffled and useless against the rumble of the engine and their occasional, low murmurs. I thought about my family, my sister, my parents. I thought about all the things I hadn't gotten to do. At some point, In a moment of absolute, bottomless terror, I was so scared that I peed myself. The warmth spreading through my running shorts was just another layer of humiliation on top of the all-consuming fear. It was a complete loss of control, a physical manifestation of my helplessness. I don't even think they noticed. Eventually, the van came to a jarring stop. The engine cut out, and for a moment, the only sound was my own ragged breathing. The doors slid open, and they pulled me out of the car, my legs weak and clumsy after being tied for so long. They dragged me across what felt like a gravel driveway and into a house. They unbound my arms and legs, the plastic of the zip ties scraping my skin as they were cut. They took the gag out of my mouth, and one of them barked at me to stand up. I was still sobbing, my body shaking uncontrollably, convinced this was the end, that they had taken me somewhere to kill me. I begged them not to, promising them I wouldn't tell anyone, that they could take whatever they wanted, my car, my non-existent savings, anything. The one who seemed to be in charge just yelled, his voice echoing in the small room. "Stand up, BTCH." I did as I was told, scrambling to my feet, trembling from head to toe. They slowly, dramatically, pulled the bag off my head. My eyes, blinded by the sudden light, blinked rapidly, trying to adjust. When my vision finally cleared, I realized that this was all some kind of sick, twisted prank. I was standing in a living room, not a dingy basement. And in front of me was my boyfriend, Alex, down on one knee. He was holding a small, open velvet box with a sparkling engagement ring inside. Behind him, taped crookedly to the wall, were gold, mylar balloons that spelled out the words, "Will you marry me?" My heart, which had been pounding with terror, was now racing with a bewildering, nauseating mix of shock and disbelief. The fear that had consumed every cell of my body just moments ago was rapidly being replaced by a white-hot, blinding rage. The three masked men, who I now recognized with a jolt as Alex's idiot friends, Jason, Kevin, and Mark, were standing off to the side, laughing. They were pulling off their ski masks, their cruel, smug smiles visible in the dim light of the living room. I looked from their stupid, laughing faces to Alex, who was still kneeling, grinning from ear to ear, clearly so proud of his clever and memorable plan. He looked like a game show host who had just revealed the grand prize. "Alex, what is this?" I managed to choke out, my voice shaking with a storm of emotions that I couldn't even begin to name. "Surprise," he said, his grin widening as if I should be thrilled. I wanted it to be memorable. Memorable. He wanted it to be memorable. I had just been abducted, bound, gagged, and terrified for my life, and he thought this was a grand, romantic gesture.
My heart felt like a lead weight in my chest.
I couldn't process the cognitive dissonance, the chaos of emotions swirling inside me. I was still trembling, my mind replaying the horrifying moments in the van, the feeling of being pinned down, the suffocating darkness of the bag over my head, the absolute, bone-deep certainty that I was about to die. How could he think this was funny? How could he possibly, in any universe, think this was a good idea? "Is this a joke?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I could feel fresh tears streaming down my face, but this time, I couldn't tell if they were from anger or a profound, soul-crushing sadness. Alex's proud smile finally faltered as he took in my tear-streaked face, my dirt-stained running clothes, and my trembling body. "It was supposed to be romantic," he said, a note of genuine confusion in his voice. I thought you would love it, you know, like in the movies."
Love it?
The words were so absurd, so completely detached from reality, that for a second, I thought I was losing my mind. How could anyone think that scaring someone half to death was a romantic way to propose? My heart ached, and I wanted to scream at him, to hit him, to make him feel even a fraction of the terror I had just endured, but all that came out was a strangled sob. The masked men, his friends, Jason, Kevin, and Mark, shifted uncomfortably, their chuckles dying down into awkward coughs as they realized this wasn't going the way they had planned. The festive atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a thick, suffocating tension. I could feel their eyes on me, and I hated them. I hated them for going along with this, for their stupid, careless laughter. And I hated Alex for thinking this was okay, for turning what should have been one of the most beautiful moments of my life into a traumatic, unforgettable nightmare. I felt so utterly alone in that moment, trapped in a surreal hell of laughter and balloons. "Just take the ring and say yes, and it'll all be over," Jason, the one who had yelled at me in the house, said with an impatient eye roll, stepping closer. I recoiled as if he had tried to hit me, the adrenaline and fear from the van flooding back in an instant. "Get away from me," I shouted, my voice finally finding its strength, sharp and ragged. Alex scrambled to his feet, his expression now a mixture of confusion and growing frustration. "Babe, please, just say yes," he pleaded, his voice taking on a whining tone. "I went through all this trouble for you." Trouble. He thought this was trouble. I looked down at the beautiful, sparkling ring in the box. And then I looked at the man holding it, a man I suddenly didn't recognize at all. How could I accept something so precious, a symbol of love, trust, and commitment, after this terrifying, degrading experience? I glanced around the room, at the cheerful, cheap decorations and the bright, shiny balloons. It was a scene of joy, but all I felt was a profound and irreversible sense of betrayal. Did you even think, for one single second, about how I would feel? I asked, my voice breaking again. This isn't love, Alex. This is cruelty. His smile completely vanished. The room fell silent. I just wanted to surprise you, he said weakly, his grand plan crumbling around him. I thought you'd be happy. Happiness does not come from fear, I replied, feeling my own strength growing with each word, my spine straightening. You terrified me, Alex. You hurt me. How can I possibly say yes to you after this? The room was still. His friends were now whispering among themselves, exchanging uneasy glances, clearly unsure of what to do. I could see the doubt and panic finally creeping into Alex's eyes. Please, he urged, his voice desperate. Just put the ring on. We can forget about all this. It'll be a funny story we tell our kids. A funny story. I took a deep breath, the absurdity of his words giving me a strange sense of calm. No, I said, my voice firm and final. I can't. Not like this. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. I turned away from Alex, my heart pounding in my chest. I just wanted to leave, to run out of that house and never look back. Let her go, man, Kevin, the quietest of the three, said in a low, serious voice from across the room. Alex turned to them, looking completely bewildered, as if his own accomplices were betraying him. What do you mean, let her go? This was the plan. Plans change, Kevin replied, shaking his head. You messed this up, dude. Big time. The weight of those words hit me. This wasn't just a prank gone wrong anymore. It was a real, serious, relationship-ending mistake. The other two stepped forward, their expressions shifting from amusement to open annoyance. You made her cry, dude, Mark said, pointing at me as if I were Exhibit A in a trial. That's not how this is supposed to work. I just stood there, frozen, as the situation completely spiraled out of Alex's control. His own friends, his co-conspirators, were turning on him. Let's just get out of here, Jason said, shaking his head in disappointment. This was supposed to be fun. Now, it's just awkward. I looked at Alex, searching his face for a flicker of remorse, some sign that he understood the gravity of what he had done. Instead, I found only a petulant anger. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was mad that his perfect plan was being ruined. You're ruining everything, he shouted at his friends, his voice rising to a childish screech. I planned this perfectly. Perfectly? You traumatized her. Kevin shot back, his voice laced with contempt. Good luck trying to marry her now. You're an idiot. My heart sank even further. They were right. How could I ever trust Alex again after this? The foundation of our relationship, which I thought was built on love and respect, was actually built on his selfish need for cinematic moments, regardless of the cost to me. Without warning, Kevin grabbed my arm gently. I flinched out of reflex, but his touch was surprisingly gentle, almost apologetic. Come on, he said to me, his voice low. Let's get you out of here. We don't need to be here for this anymore. Wait, no. This was supposed to be my moment. Alex cried out, his voice filled with a pathetic, childish desperation that was both sad and infuriating. Stop, I finally shouted, finding my voice again. I want to leave. Just hold on, okay? Kevin said, looking at me with a hint of genuine understanding in his eyes. We'll get you out of here. I promise. As they pulled me toward the door, I glanced back at Alex one last time. He looked utterly defeated, his shoulders slumping as the full weight of his monumental screw-up finally seemed to land on him. He was just a boy, playing director in a movie where he was the only one who didn't realize the script was a tragedy. I felt a confusing mix of anger and pity, but I knew I had to get out. The door swung open, and I stumbled outside into the cool night air. It felt like I was taking my first breath after nearly drowning. We walked away from the house in a tense, awkward silence. The fear was slowly ebbing away, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. When we reached a nearby park, the three of them stopped. They took off their masks completely, and in the pale glow of the streetlights, I could see the genuine remorse in their eyes. They looked like chastened little boys. Look, Kevin started, his voice quiet. We didn't mean for it to go this far. We honestly thought it would be funny. A crazy story to tell. We never wanted to actually hurt you. You think this is fun? I asked, my voice dripping with an anger that was finally boiling over. You tied me up. You pinned me down. I thought I was going to die. This wasn't a game. I know, he said, his voice earnest. We messed up.
Badly.
And I'm really, truly sorry. For my part in it. I hope you can forgive us one day. I just shook my head, still trying to process everything. The world felt tilted on its axis. I can't forgive you, I said. Not now. Maybe not ever. I understand, he replied, not arguing. But please know, we just wanted to create a memorable moment for your boyfriend. He was obsessed with it. I turned away from them, staring at the dark, empty playground. You ruined everything, I whispered, more to myself than to them. They stood there in silence, the weight of their actions finally, truly sinking in. I just want to go home, I said softly, my voice raw. They nodded and called me a rideshare, waiting with me in silence until the car arrived. As I waited, I thought about Alex. He wasn't just immature, he was dangerously selfish. He had betrayed my trust in the most profound way possible. I didn't know how I could ever face him again, or if I even wanted to. When the car arrived, I got in without looking back at them. The weight of the world felt like it was lifting off my shoulders. As the car pulled away, I watched the world pass by through the window, and I knew I had to find my strength again. And I would. When I got back to the safety of my own apartment, I locked the door, bolted it, and leaned against it, my body still trembling with residual adrenaline. I sat on my bed, the shock still rolling over me in waves. My phone buzzed relentlessly with messages and missed calls from Alex. A long string of, I'm sorry, please talk to me. I can fix this. I turned the phone off and threw it on the bed, focusing instead on the deep, aching pain in my chest. I remembered all the conversations we'd had about our future, the dreams we had shared. Now, all of it felt tainted, poisoned by his grotesque performance of love. The next morning, I woke up feeling a little stronger, the anger having solidified into a cold, hard resolve. I went for a walk, not a run, just a slow, deliberate stroll to clear my head. I thought about what I really wanted in a partner. I wanted respect. I wanted safety. I wanted a love that was a quiet, steady sanctuary, not a chaotic, terrifying movie set. I knew I had to confront Alex one last time. I had to end it for good. I finally gathered the courage to turn my phone back on and respond, asking him to meet me at a neutral, public place, a busy coffee shop where he couldn't make a scene. When he arrived, I could see the worry and desperation etched into the lines on his face. He looked like he hadn't slept. I'm so glad to see you, he said, trying to take my hand across the small table. I pulled it back. No, Alex, I said, my voice steady and calm. We need to talk. His face fell. What's wrong? You didn't like the proposal? The fact that he could still call it that after everything told me everything I needed to know. Proposal? I asked, my voice filled with a cold incredulity. You scared me half to death, Alex. You had me bound and gagged in the back of a van. That wasn't a proposal. It was a nightmare. He started pleading, the same tired excuses pouring out of him. He didn't mean to hurt me, he just wanted to surprise me, to do something big. Surprise me by kidnapping me? I shot back, the anger bubbling up again. How could you possibly think that was okay? You put me through hell, Alex. That is not love. That is selfish, and it is cruel. He looked genuinely shocked, as if he was only now beginning to understand the depth of his mistake. I thought you'd see the humor in it later, he mumbled, looking down at his hands. There is nothing funny about what happened, I said, my voice unyielding. I can't be with someone who thinks this is okay. I can't marry someone who would do this to me. It's over. The days that followed were hard, but I was determined to move forward. I surrounded myself with my friends and family, my real support system. Alex, however, did not take the breakup well. The begging texts and calls continued, but then his behavior escalated into something far more sinister. He started showing up at my favorite coffee shop, not approaching me, just sitting in a corner, watching me. He would wait outside my apartment building for hours, sometimes leaving little gifts on my doorstep, a single rose, a framed photo of us from happier times. He was no longer just a heartbroken ex. He was starting to feel like a threat. He was stalking me. He got his friends, and even some of my more distant, mutual friends to try and talk to me on his behalf, pressuring me to forgive him, telling me how heartbroken he was. I felt cornered, my sense of safety in my own city eroding all over again. The final, horrifying straw came a few weeks later. In what he must have thought was a grand, romantic, movie-like gesture, he organized a flash mob outside my apartment building. A whole group of hired dancers, a sound system, the works. They were performing a choreographed routine to our song, while Alex stood in the middle, holding a bouquet of roses. My neighbors were on their balconies, filming and cheering, but I was just mortified, trapped in my own home by his grand, unwanted gestures. That night, he took it even further. He climbed onto the roof of a building across the street from mine, holding a giant, hand-painted banner that read, "I'm sorry. Will you marry me?" He was shouting my name, drawing a crowd, and soon, I could see the flashing lights of a local news van pulling up. This was too much. This wasn't love. It was a public spectacle designed to humiliate me, to force my hand, to make me the villain if I didn't comply. I rushed outside, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and fear. Alex, get down from there. I yelled, but he just beamed at me, as if he had finally figured out the perfect romantic gesture. Just say yes, he shouted back, his voice echoing through the street. This isn't love, Alex. This is a nightmare. I screamed, tears of pure frustration streaming down my face. You're not showing me you love me. You're trying to control me. You're trying to trap me. The crowd below murmured, the mood shifting from amusement to concern as they heard the desperation in my voice. For the first time, I saw true understanding flicker in his eyes. The performance was over. He slowly, defeatedly, climbed down from the roof. I'm sorry, he whispered when he reached me, the banner lying in a heap at his feet. I thought if I did these big things, it would show you how much I care. Love isn't about grand gestures, Alex, I said, my voice finally steady and clear. It's about respect and trust. And you broke both of those into a million pieces. You need to leave me alone. For good. He nodded, a shadow of deep, irreversible regret crossing his face. I'll give you space, he said. And this time he finally did. The next day, with the help of my sister, I went to the police and filed for a restraining order. I used the news footage, the texts, the testimony from my friends. It was granted. The legal document felt like a shield, a boundary he was finally forced to respect. The next few months were a journey of healing for me. I went to therapy to work through the trauma of both the proposal and the stalking. I started painting again, a passion I had neglected while trying to fit into Alex's cinematic world. My art became my voice, a way to process the fear and the anger. And one day, at a local art exhibition where I was showing one of my pieces, I met someone new. His name was Noah. He was kind and thoughtful, and he listened. He was a musician, and he understood the need for a quiet, creative space. He made me feel safe. Our relationship grew slowly, cautiously, built on a foundation of mutual respect, not fear or performance. Alex, I heard through the grapevine, also started going to therapy. He was working on himself, trying to understand his own toxic behavior and his obsession with grand, empty gestures. One day, about a year later, I received a simple, quiet email from him, sent through his therapist to mine so as not to violate the restraining order. It was a genuine apology, with no demands, no expectations, no performance. He just wanted to say that he was truly sorry for the pain and trauma he had caused, and that he finally understood how deeply he had wronged me. I wrote back 2 words to my therapist to pass along. Thank you. I had forgiven him, not for him, but for myself. I was ready to move on completely, to embrace a future free from the long, dark shadows of the past. My life is quiet now, and it is my own. It's not a movie, and I am so grateful for that. I learned that love should never cost you your peace of mind, and that true strength is knowing when to walk away and choose yourself.